Missing. Thank you. I'm just gonna sit in the middle here and then move over for you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Michael Mott and Friends is a celebratory concert series. It's always my goal to share music, stories, and spread joy. Given the current state of affairs regarding racial injustice in the United States, performing a regular Michael Mott and Friends show feels tone deaf and insensitive. I spoke to Jenna Ushkowitz and Geoff Countryman today, who were my originally scheduled guests, and they agreed their appearances should be postponed for a later date. I went back and forth with whether or not I should even do a show tonight. I'm aware that I have a platform, and while respecting hashtag the show must be paused, I feel it is my duty to use this platform and bring awareness, educate, and inspire. As most of you know, if you follow me, I have been in a relationship with a biracial man for the past 7 months. He and I consistently have private conversations about race, from interracial relationships to our cultural backgrounds and differences, including how we were raised and how faith played a role in our upbringing. With what's going on in the world today, it made me realize those private conversations could be beneficial if they were hosted on a public platform like this. People often say, but you're an entertainer, you're a songwriter, so just entertain us. We don't want or need to hear your opinions. We love your music, and that's that. But in order for me to be the best songwriter that I can be, I need to be having conversations. Every single song you've ever heard of mine has blossomed out of a personal experience and or conversation. It's only in conversations that I can learn, grow, and gain perspective. Since the very beginning of these virtual concerts, Nathaniel is the one behind the camera, running the aspects of all Michael Mott and Friends. The technical aspects, I should say. His perspective is always important and influential to me. And now, more than ever, that perspective needs to be shared and heard. So I would like to introduce you to Nathaniel Hunt. Ooh, hi.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm okay. I was nervous. I was
nervous. You just unplugged my computer?
Yeah. Yes, maybe. We're good.
Okay.
See, my technical aspects, it's better for me to be behind the camera than in front of it.
Great. Everyone wants to see. Can you see? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hi. We're also doing our own technical aspects here, okay? Wait, I'm gonna move this over so everyone can see you.
It's new for everyone.
Here we go. There we go.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
So, how's it feel to be on this side of the camera?
It's so weird.
Is it weird?
It's so weird.
No, don't
because
be weird.
usually I have my setup, because you're usually home in your apartment and I'm usually here at my apartment. And I'm we have our hour conversation beforehand of okay, you're gonna be great. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. And then I'm jamming to your songs in my kitchen. And now I'm okay, I have to put on something nice and I have to shave my face. So anyway, it's a little.
You look great. You look great. Don't be. Thank you for coming and doing this.
Of course, yeah.
So there is so much information going around back and forth. The country could not be more divided.
Yeah.
It could not be more. It's a very sad time.
Yeah.
There is so much happening. Some people are listening, but a lot of people are shouting.
Yeah.
A lot of people are accusing.
Yeah.
A lot of people are throwing things at each other. We're flinging mud. What I appreciate so much about you is that you have the ability to look at and speak about something from such a calm, centered, cool place.
Yeah.
You see the glass half full all the time. And the thing that the thing that I love most about you is how you use your platform to inspire people.
Mm. Yeah.
What is going on? Why is all of this happening right now?
It's so much, right? It's we talk about, the big thing, the catalyst was George Floyd. And and then you're talking about your mindset of how do you stay positive? How do you stay calm in all of this? And I guess I really accredit that portion, that starts with that first point, to my parents, that I was just kind of so fortunate that, the way they brought me, my sister up was a space to show sympathy and empathy and compassion for somebody else and realize that, okay, that person is suffering. Before you act, think about them, think about, possibly what they're going through, you don't know someone else's story until they share it. So I think, that kind of handles that first part of my mindset. And I think that there's a lesson in that of, okay, maybe a lot is happening, right? There's these, peaceful protests. And then there's the opposite of that. There's some rioting and some looting, and then there's some name calling, and then there's some prejudice, and then there's so much. And I think for me, I can't speak to an entire community of Black people just because I'm a Black person. It's just mine.
You're one person.
Yeah, one person.
You are honestly, the closest thing. I have a lot of Black friends.
Yeah.
You are I'm in a relationship with you. I'm seeing firsthand.
Yeah.
You are my main access point, and I'm seeing pain through your eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm learning in a completely different way. I only know what I know, and I am the product of my experiences and how I was born and how I was raised.
Yeah, and I think it's there shouldn't be any guilt in that. We talk about people kind of feel offended on certain things or certain terms. And, it's not I can go shopping and choose that I want Black today. You're I was born into this, I love my mom and my dad for that. And come on, integration. But, it's one of those things that's okay, this wasn't a choice. And that's okay. And that's great. And that kind of diversity you didn't choose your upbringing, I didn't choose mine, but because they're different, and because we're both open, and because we're both compassionate listeners and respectful listeners, we can like take that a step further and be like, oh wow, you do things that way. You're like, okay, that's neither good nor bad. That's not right nor wrong. It's just different. So I'm finding now, especially what's going on, is people choosing that conversation of, you're right, I'm wrong. This is good, this is bad.
Well, now is a time that honestly we need to all just be listening.
Yeah.
And that's why I debated with whether I should do the show tonight or not. Because I was like, I have a platform, but do people really need to be hearing a white man tonight?
Yeah. Well,
look at what's going on in the world and why. And that's my whole point. I'm not trying to use you as a prop.
Yeah.
We talked about this at great length. I said, would you want to come on and talk about your experience and share? Because I feel like giving the platform and having this, I'm looking at Instagram over here. So we're on Facebook and YouTube, and we're on Instagram.
Doing both.
Having this platform, I'm not doing my job unless I'm sharing it and giving a voice to everyone and letting everyone be heard, because I'm one person with one experience, as you're one person with one experience.
Yeah.
But you have a completely different perspective than I do.
Yeah. And I think you said, I'm going to go back, you had said the importance of listening. And I think that, if anything, is probably the most, we have 2 sets of ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen twice as much as we speak.
Hello.
And so, so if you think about it in that space of, okay, let me just listen. And, and that's hard, I think, because we want to shift sides. We want to be in the right. We want to be on the winning side. And it's like, I think with something that's so massive and that's so complex as what's going on right now, it's like, wow, there's a lot of voices, there's a lot of sides, there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of perspectives. You could get a different person in this seat right now to give you a different perspective. You could get someone who, was raised by 2 Black parents. You could have someone who was raised by a white dad and a Black mom, versus
mine. We should talk about that, because your perspective is different as well, because you're biracial.
Yeah.
You have a white mother and a Black father.
Lorianne, Jim Hunt. Mm-hmm.
So that's completely different.
Yeah.
Than I have 2 white parents.
Yeah.
And it'd be different than someone's experience with 2 Black parents.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was interested in, I talked to you a lot about, is how do you talk about these issues with your mom versus these issues with your dad?
It's interesting. I think with my mom, she's on here right now, I can see her. With my mom, our relationship has always been, she wants to know, she wants to know, she wants to hear, she wants to talk. It's that sense of urgency, that kind of loving, compassionate urgency. I think ever since I moved to New York, she was like, oh, my baby, and so we have, our relationship is kind of full of deep conversation. And I think because she is not of my community, she's not Black, she is of the majority. So I think for her, she wants to know, she's like, I need to know, I need to understand, he's my baby, he's my child. And
your mom is coming.
Hi, Mom. And I think it's different with my dad because he is a Black man. Yeah. And so he already gets it and he already knows. And not that it's not necessarily that we don't talk. I talked to my dad today, but I think for us, it's like, you're there. Mm-hmm. I hear you. I love you. Yeah. I miss you. Yeah. Because we already had that kind of shared experience. And so even in that space, it's a different conversation. And not to say that one is better than the other, and not to even say that like one relationship is stronger than the other. But I think the importance of that is my mom recognizes that she has a responsibility to learn because she is of the majority. It's because she is white. And I think and how she acts on that is asking questions, is listening, right. Is kind of just being like, hey, I hear you, I see you, I love you. And I think that's Miss Moore, yes, my mom is incredible. This is Miss Moore, she's my mom's best friend. She also was my 3rd grade teacher. So I think that's the space, right? It's right. Like the listening of that responsibility. But like I said, we have different different experiences, different perspectives. There's a friend of mine who has two Black parents, and for her, I'll kind of keep her name private just for now. For her experience is different than mine. Whereas, you know, she was taught a certain way to be if you get pulled over by a police officer.
Exactly, and this is something that we experienced together.
Well,
because she was taught this.
Yeah.
You learned it.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about that.
I think it's, you know, I think because my mom is white, that even in that space of what she's exposed to, what kind of traditions and what information was passed on to her, she wasn't told by, you know, her parents, hey, when you're stopped by the police, make sure you keep your arms in visible sight, say your name, say how old you are, and say that you have nothing of anything on you that can hurt you.
Hurt the police officer.
Hurt the police officer, yes. You know, so it's like, that was kind of her space of like learning and kind of her conditioning. Whereas, you know, my friend who has two sets of Black parents, that was their experience. And so they're like, I need to make sure that my child knows that, you know, these specific kind of precautions. And that's not to say that's anyone's fault. Yeah. Right? Like, that's no one's fault. That's no one's fault, but it's just the reality. You know, I saw my cousin Megan is on here, and there was an experience. We were going to our grandfather's funeral this last year, and we had to like make a train or make a boat. We had to get there really fast. We were really early, and you know, she was going a little too fast on the highway, and we got pulled over by a police officer. I think it was like a state trooper, and immediately I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I kind of sit myself upright. I cross my hands like this, and I put them in my lap. And, you know, police officer's on the side, and I'm here the whole time, and I'm speaking, hello, sir, you know, how are you? And we finished, and Meg looked over to me, and she was like, she just knew. And I was like, yeah.
It's just so crazy, because I was born white, clearly, and yes, newsflash.
You guys have some comic relief in here somewhere.
And no, but the thing is, like, I was stopped by the cops once when I was like 16. I just got my driver's permit, and I literally knew him because he was friends with my dad. And I was like, oh, my dad is this person.
Yeah.
And like, that is kind of like the epitome of what white privilege is. And I never would even know that until I see the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my experience was I never even had to think or worry about that, which is the exact definition of white privilege.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people get up in arms about that word, but you know, I was completely ignorant to it and didn't know. And then I listened and I learned, like, the things that you have to go through just because of the color of your skin is mind-boggling. And that's exactly what all of these protests and these riots are all about. Yeah. And I want to segue into, you know, a lot of people think that the protests and the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement going on right now is in response to George Floyd. Mm-hmm. And obviously it is. Everyone agrees that the cop who murdered him was horrible and was inhumane. Everything he did was terrible. And thankfully, he and the other 3 cops were charged.
Yeah, today.
Woo! However, George Floyd is the catalyst for what is happening right now. Yeah. What is happening in the world is scary and it's crazy, but it's happening for a reason. And I think what we need to do is what we need to do is listen to why. Get to the why this is happening. Because this is not happening because people hate America. No. This is not happening because people are trying to destroy America. This is reactions of pain. Yeah.
And you know, if you think about it, it's George Floyd was, you know, they say everything comes in threes. My mom says that. Everything comes in threes. And before George, there was Breonna Taylor. And before Breonna Taylor, there was Mott. And, you know, it's like another one. And that's how it feels, you know. And it's like, you know, I remember I called you about two and a half weeks ago. I found out about Breonna Taylor on social media, and I was hearing what was happening, and I was like hysterical. I was hysterically crying.
It was like 12:30 at night. You called me crying.
Yeah,
I was
and
like, what is wrong?
Yeah, and you did so well. Yeah, you know, I was like, was that you did so well. And
I have never had someone.
Yeah.
Well, explain what it was.
well, yeah, okay, so yeah, it was like 12:30, and I found out about Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor, for those who don't know, was a Black woman. She was an EMT. She was sleeping in her apartment with her boyfriend, and the police broke down her door, entered her apartment, and started shooting. She was fatally shot, and she was killed. The part that stings a little bit more is, a couple things. She was sleeping. The police, it was for a drug raid for an individual who they had already apprehended, and that individual lived in a different neighborhood than Breonna. So they were at the wrong place. And so you're like, oh my God, you know, and I'm here in New York City in my apartment by myself, and I'm like, is someone gonna come through my door, you know? And it's super triggering.
And you have those reactions.
Oh my God.
Those are real reactions.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a white person, I don't understand that. I completely empathize with that.
Yeah.
But I can never understand that because I don't fear for my life in that way. And that's what has shook me to my core and made me realize, like, wow, there are some actual problems with the world, in the world, if you are feeling that way, that you can't even feel safe in your own home, even when you hear stories like that.
Yeah, because, you know, it's like, here's someone who looks like you, who, for some reason that we don't know, right? There's so many speculations, but just we'll say for conversation's sake, for some reason was murdered. And to go to that extreme of like killing someone or the death of someone, you're like, that's hard. That's really hard. That's hard to digest. And, you know, for me, you know, with Breonna, I was like emotional, and I was like, what is happening? I was like, barely could sleep, you know. And with George, it's like, it feels like, you know, I was talking to friends of mine, Michelle and Lynn, and we're like, it feels like you're crossing the street into oncoming traffic. Like you're just trying to get to the other side, and there's these cars, and you're trying to dodge them, and sometimes you get hit by these things, and you're like, but I have to keep going. And you're like, how do I do that? And why is it happening? And so
it's like heartbreaking.
It's super like hindering, and you're like, I don't know what to do. And one of the beautiful things that I have found that you know, you talked about this in the beginning of it, it's like, you know, thinking glass half full or things like that. In times like this, it's hard to, right? But it's like, I think about all of, like my sister, you know, who's I love you too. It's like, you think about all the people who do support you and all the people who do love you. And I had made a post when I had found out about George, super simple. It was like, go check in on your Black friends. Yeah. We're not okay.
Yeah.
And yes, it was a little selfish of like, for me, but I also knew that I was getting that support from people. So if I'm feeling that like that as a Black person, I know somebody else is feeling like they can't function, that they feel dehumanized, that they feel like their life is disposable. And so, you know, it's like, just go text them right now. Like, I love you. I hear for you. I hear you. I see you.
And unprompted, I had actually done that with 4 friends. And the response that I got back from them, because I saw your pain, and it changed my mindset, and it made me not change my mindset, it opened my mindset, and it made
things a lot more real. I think.
It hit home in such a completely different way.
You were like, I just feel this. I don't feel okay.
I think what I said to you is, seeing your pain like that and feeling that from you, feels like I am also wearing a blanket of pain. Yeah. And that's what it feels like. Like I have a blanket of pain put on, and it's not my pain. Right. It is. It's all of our pain. Yeah. It's like a shared thing. But I texted my friends, old friends from college, and they were so moved that I reached out to them, and I was like, just my simple act of being like, I am here for you. Yeah. I hear you. I support you, and I stand with you. And if you need anything, I'm here to talk. Yeah. And they were like, you don't know how much it means to me. Yeah.
because if you know,
but what? Sorry.
No. It's like, you know, it's only my experience, but it's like there have been times where you feel like you're not seen or you're not heard. You know, I'm in an audition. I'm a dancer. I didn't even talk about that. I'm a dancer anyway. You know, you go to an audition and you're like, wow, I feel really great about this. I was like, I nailed that combination. You're like feeling yourself, feeling great. And then you get cut and you see everyone who's left is a bunch of white guys. And you're like.
Well, that brings me to a really interesting point because Nathaniel has broken out. He and I have been having lots of conversations about systemic racism and what that means and why, and things that I thought I understood, but now understand at such a deeper level. Explaining the breakdown, and it's insane, and I hope we can actually get into that and talk about that. But one of the things, so Nate performs at the Metropolitan Opera, theater and dance are so different.
It's okay.
Performs with the Metropolitan Opera, which is the best, biggest, largest, most prestigious opera in the entire world. And you do, what, 3 shows a year there normally?
4.
Great. However, with that, when you tell people that you perform at the Met,
I told you the story,
and their reaction is, "Wow," I perceive that as because you're performing at the Met. It's the biggest deal in the entire world, and your reaction is,
I think it's like how I feel is because I'm Black, I'm not able to perform. It wouldn't be in my ballpark to be able to dance at the Met because I'm Black. And
that literally makes me want to cry. Because it's so sad that you have to carry that.
Yeah. And I know, you know, there are.
And you're not the only one.
That's, I think that's kind of a little bit everywhere, right? Yeah. There's this bias, you know, and this kind of talks with systemic racism. There's this bias that, that people have about every single cultural or community or race. And I think that kind of is subconscious. That's like, oh, I wouldn't, in my mind, it's like, well, I wouldn't assume that a Black person could hold that high regard of dancing for the Metropolitan Opera. Maybe because you think about how many people are there in comparison in numbers or in proportion or in ratio, that our numbers are so much lower. And then you're like, well, why is that? Is it because, I don't think it's because of our talent. I think there's some really incredible dancers of color and artists of color. So it's like, why aren't there more of them? And then I think, you know, that stems into outrage. People outrage, you know, in that way. It's sorrow, it's depression, it's all of these things. It's mental health. But yeah, it's this kind of sense of conditioning that, you know, when people say, oh my gosh, like, that's incredible that you're dancing at the Met, that it's, how I receive is, well, is that not okay? Am I not supposed to be at the Met? Am I only supposed to be in places that are labeled as Black? You know, I have danced for Alvin Ailey too, and that was the most.
And explain what that is.
Yeah, Alvin Ailey too. It's the second company to the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, which is like the premier.
It's like a big deal. It's like the Met's here for opera. Alvin Ailey is right there for dance.
It's really fun. Really great. And you know, it's interesting. I had this conversation on a podcast about maybe a month ago, and when I was growing up dancing, people would say to me, "Oh my gosh, you look like an Ailey dancer." And
Ailey is A-I-L-E-Y, not an A-L-L-E-Y
yes.
dancer, not an Ailey dancer.
Yes.
An Alvin Ailey dancer.
An Alvin Ailey dancer.
Yes.
And I was like, I always took that as like, probably not because of how I dance, because I was like this like 14-year-old boy who like didn't know like left from right and all these things. But it was, in my mind, I thought it was because I was Black. So, you know, that senses of like how you get kind of feels like forced into these kind of circles and stuff. So it's I don't know. Like I said, that's my experience, and different people have different experiences. There's a lot of you know, friends of mine who feel differently when it comes to spaces of art or job and stuff. And there's some people who feel similarly.
This is the time right now for conversation, and we're having conversations. Not everybody is having a conversation. I believe that it's actually white people having conversations with each other. And like those uncomfortable conversations are what needs to be happening right now.
Yeah.
And I've been having them with members of my family.
Yeah.
I've been having them with all of my friends.
Yeah.
But it's different when the friends that I have are all like-minded.
Yeah.
So everyone that I have is like, of course. And we all think the same way.
Yeah.
And members of the family maybe don't understand.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten into any fights, but I've had heated arguments about all lives matter versus Black lives matter and why that is so important.
Yeah.
And I explained it to someone, I'm not going to call them out, but I explained it as like, of course all lives matter. No one is saying all lives do not matter.
Right.
Of course, every single one person's life matters. The issue is the Black community is the one hurting right now.
Yeah.
And I posted this on my Instagram. I posted and Facebook, everywhere, Twitter, everywhere. The Black community is the one that's hurting right now. And if you go to the doctor and your arm is broken, and you say, hi, my arm is broken, the doctor doesn't say, yeah, but all bones matter. Of course all bones matter. The bone that's broken and is hurting is the arm bone. So please help me give this one attention.
Yeah.
Because, so that's all people are saying with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And it's very clear to me, and I get it now. Not that I didn't before, but I get it. And when I explain it that way, people see, it seems to click.
Yeah. And I mean,
and it's just acknowledging it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just acknowledging. Because of course all lives matter. Of course they do.
I mean, there's those spaces, and one of my best friends, Deidre, I've danced with her, and Ailey too, and she's my roommate, she's my best friends. She is white. And I remember we had this conversation while on tour. It was all of us, all the dance company, all the company members together in a room, and just kind of talking about this. And now,
I remember this,
and Deidre was just sitting there like wide-eyed, and she just was like taking in all of this kind of information. And at the end, when she felt that space, she was like, what can I do? And I remember, I talk to her all the time, and it's those spaces, it's those conversations that, non-people of color have with other non-people of color. And those are the spaces, those are kind of the bridges. My cousin called me the other day, he was like, what can I do? And I told him about this. It's like,
he's white.
He is white, yeah. He was like, hey man, I'm feeling real sick about this. Like, I need some help me. And I was like, sure. And it's those spaces when, in a sense, white people are with other white people when Black people are not there. And
it's true.
And it's not even like throwing racial slurs. It's like those subconscious, like not even aware moments of maybe bias or prejudice or insensitivity or maybe slight disrespect, where someone who like you, who's like, okay, I feel personally affected by this. That kind of sounds a little off. I'm just going to address it, but I'm not going to attack you and be like, you're saying it wrong. That's not okay. I'm not going to say that. I'm like, hey, I think what you just said was a little insensitive. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about why you said it?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about Nate, is that he can approach things from such a clear, centered place. And I'm like reactive. I get pissed real quick.
Yeah, we're working on it. But I mean,
no. He does not enjoy that about me. Okay?
It's okay.
However,
but I think it's that space of, being reactive versus being responsive. And there is, there's that space before you say something that is that pause, is that small little moment that's like, let me just sit with this. Let me just, before I even react, before I say something or like clap back at a tweet, I'm gonna be like,
oh, I've been all over Facebook fighting with people today. And the last 3 days, I'm like, why am I engaging in arguments with people? Because I'm trying to,
You're trying to like, I think it's.
I'm trying to give a different perspective.
Yeah. And it's this thing, I don't know, but it's like, sometimes it's like, I'm so mad at, like, I don't understand why you don't get it, right? But it's like, not that you're talking to someone like a child, But, you know, if my niece, Natalie, who's 4, is doing something wrong, she doesn't know necessarily that she may be doing something wrong. And so I can't be like, how dare you do that, right? Because that is going to be so jarring and traumatic. And, you know, she might not yell at me, but she'll probably cry. But, you know, instead of yelling at her, I'm like, hey, this is why we're not going to do that. You know, if you sit down and have that space before I react, if I respond, but also reading the room of my audience of like, okay, this might be a 40-something-year-old man who's been living in his beliefs for 40-something years. I don't think I can probably address him the same way as I would address a 12-year-old, a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's that space of, you know, you're passionate about stuff and you want to address it, but there's also that space of, okay, let me just pause and respond instead of react. Oh, that's my mom. I love you, mom.
We have a great comment about that on Instagram Live that I'm just seeing.
Okay.
Spot on. And I would say there's inadvertent, ignorant rationalization that goes on in those. I can't read. I'm sorry. Can I have my glasses?
Yeah. Right.
Spot on. And I would say that there's inadvertent, ignorant rationalization that goes on in those. I can't read that. In those what? In those one-on-one conversations too.
Yeah.
My Lord.
Okay.
Thank you.
And here's the thing. And I think this is important to say. There is right. It's like there's right and wrong. Everyone is attributing to this, good and bad, right? Like, it's not that all white people are bad. It's not that all Black people are good, right?
It's not that all cops are bad.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not that all Republicans and conservatives are stupid.
Right. No.
Or
exactly.
all liberals are right.
Correct.
It is not any of that.
Correct. And so that's that labeling and these kind of polarization that we're doing. You know, it's like step yourself out of that for a second and being like, that's a human being. I'm a human being. And I will listen. I commit myself to listening to that person. Yes, I may have different views. I may believe something different. I may live in a different place, whatever that is. But like,
that is a mature thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's such thing as healthy debate. You can have a healthy debate. You can disagree with someone, have a healthy debate, and still care about that person.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm not gonna get political.
No, don't. Please don't. Wait, before I say this,
but
I think it's based out of fear. I think a lot of this.
Is it fear or is it just not knowing? I don't know. Maybe it's fear.
I think it's fear. If you think about it, fear is, we have this human condition to resist things we don't know. And that is even the color of someone's skin. I had a good conversation with my mom yesterday. All the days blending together. I think it was yesterday. And she was talking about her experience when she brought my dad, who's Black, into their family for the very first time. And it was her paternal grandmother who resisted my father.
White
woman, white grandmother, resisted my father who was Black. Now you're talking, that's what, 3 generations up?
Mm-hmm. From you.
From me. Just the resistance. And I even asked, you know, was there any racial slurs? She said no. But she said, what is this man doing in our house? Like, this resistance, just based off of the fear of not knowing what this brown person is gonna do, is gonna act. I've never interacted with this before. And so there are, you know, that talks about systemic racism, and that kind of filters down, but also the human condition of like fear of what do we do when we're afraid? It's like the fight or flight syndrome, you know? And like, if I'm afraid that, you know, I'm being attacked because I'm called a racist, you know, like I'm in fear that like people are going to call me a racist. And so I'm like, I'm not, and I'm blah, blah, blah. And you're like, it's just that sense of, I think fear has a lot to play into definitely systemic racism, but how we look at other people, of the fear of.
No, it's absolutely true.
You know,
it's so true. And the thing is, like, systemic racism is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit, and I have so many notes here, things to talk about.
He printed them out, he like typed them out. You did so good. Look at that, guys. It's so good.
I just wanted to make sure that I have all the right things and I have all the resources and I can, cover all the things. But I mean, this has already been 40 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so like, we didn't even get to what we're trying to talk about.
Okay.
Point. I mean, we did. This is obviously very important, but I want to talk about this.
Yes.
You were so affected by George Floyd.
Yes.
And you took the first step. Can you talk about what this is?
Sure. So,
talk about the first thing.
The first thing, we have like these bullet points. So for me, like I said, a lot of my family members were reaching out to me asking what to do. I don't know what to do. How can I help in this moment? And I would say, text this number or sign this petition, please, or donate to this place. And so I kind of organized this anti-racism resource and action steps. And
for those of you on Instagram, that is available on Nathaniel's Instagram, @NathanielHunt_, and also on my Instagram. So you can just go click on the link in my bio, and the first thing is anti-racism resources and action steps. Because, not to cut you off, let me just put this in there before you go on. Talking about it is one thing, and we should be having these conversations, but the only way we're going to lead to change and the only way anything is going to happen in breaking the cycle is to act, to do something. Whether that's just having a conversation with your family, with your friends, whatever. But the links are there, and they're so simple. You can send a quick text, and you're doing something.
Yeah. And so,
not everyone has to go out and protest.
Right.
Because we are in the middle of a pandemic as well.
That is true. That is true.
And that's how I feel. I'm like, I'm not going out and protesting right now. I will use my voice this way and my platform to protest and make change, not go out there and risk. I have 3 people I know have passed away from COVID.
Yeah.
Complications with COVID.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please continue.
Action steps. So I just kind of, I curated this thing, or I created this document that just had some kind of simple things to do off your phone in your house. Organizations to follow, people to follow, places to donate. And it kind of picked up so much traction. And I was just kind of doing it for my friends and my family. Like, I was like, keep texting me about the same things. I'm going to just like make it in a simple place. And it was like, I spent a few hours on it. I posted it maybe like 11 p.m. at night or something. And it like picked up and people were like, thank you so much. Friends out of like the woodworks were texting me, can I please share this? And so that made me think like, oh, wow, okay. I was using my platform. I was only thinking that I had the platform of dance or, that space of dance to share. But
his Instagram feed just used to be his ass, okay? Hey, you look at his Instagram and it's just him posing.
Okay, first of all, they are artistically beautiful photos. He is hating on me.
I am not hating. See, she agrees. No, I'm kidding. I'm
not okay. And so so I was like, please share it. Please, pass it along. And for me, it felt like I could do something and I had a voice in this space of this kind of racial climate, of this injustice. And so for me, can I talk about the next thing?
Yeah.
So the next thing, so then I was like, okay, I can do something. I have this platform. I've been in New York City for 10 years and I've been dancing for about 6 or 7 professionally. And so let me organize this event, this fundraiser with these 19 other artists. And it's called Rise, Reflect, Restore. And we just kind of launched that today officially. Yesterday we announced it.
He's been working so hard on this all day, every day, to the point that I have to say, you need to get up. We're going to cook now. We're going to go outside now. We're going to go for a workout now. We're going to have a workout now. We're going to go for a walk now.
Yeah.
I have to peel him away from the computer. He's working so hard.
I know. My mom was like, honey, when did you eat? Did you go outside, please?
Eating is not a problem, Mrs. Hunt. Do not worry. We're eating.
We're eating. And so officially, Rise, Reflect, Restore is a 3-day virtual fundraising event for the NAACP and Color of Change. It is happening June 5th, Friday, June 5th through Sunday the 7th. And we've got about...
Where's it happening?
On Instagram. It's going to be happening, if you check out my Instagram, All of these events are going to be happening on Instagram Live. We are going to be using Facebook Live for all these discussions. So it's kind of, there's movement classes of all ages, right? So not just professional dancers. There's like, you know, the soccer mom, the FedEx dad, all of these, you know, the students, all of them. There's movement classes. There are these really insightful, maybe a little bit uncomfortable conversations that we're having about, you know, being biracial, about how to be an ally, about existing in the system, about interracial relationships. You know, and then we're having these performances, you know, some musical guests, some poetry. Because for me, I feel, if I feel some way, there's very possible that somebody else somewhere feels something. And my feeling of like, I want to do something, but I want to recognize that I'm in the middle of a pandemic, and I, you know, I don't necessarily want to be outside protesting. I also maybe don't have the emotional capacity for that right now as I'm processing this. So let me provide something that's a fundraiser for these two organizations that can, you know, you can do something. You can have these uncomfortable conversations. You can do a modern class. You can cook in the kitchen with Amira. So please join us.
Not my niece.
Oh yeah.
Amira.
So please join us on Instagram Friday through Sunday, and you know, share it as much as you can, participate in it as much as you can, support it as much as you can. And we were so fortunate. We've got already donations coming in, and we haven't even started yet.
So people can donate at...
There's two ways. So Venmo at Rise Reflect Restore.
No periods. Just Rise Reflect Restore.
And PayPal.
It's paypal.me/Rise Reflect Restore.
So all of that is going to be on my Instagram at Nathaniel Hunt _, if you want to be a part of it. And again, even if you're in a space, you're like, I feel uncomfortable to do something.
Well, I think,
you know,
I think people feel uncomfortable. Let's talk about why people feel uncomfortable, because I've been talking to certain people. They're like, I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help.
Yeah.
And that list of anti-racism resources and action steps, again, it is in my link in my bio. It is so easy. I literally spent like 2 hours the first day that he made it, and I was just like whipping through that, doing things.
Yeah.
It's so easy, but we're gonna make it even easier for you.
Right.
You can do this one simple thing right now. You can take your phone, you can go to your text messages, and you can text the number 55156, and just text FLOYD, Floyd. Text the name Floyd to 55156. You will get an automatically generated link to sign a petition. You can read the petition. It is so easy. Just that is
makes a difference.
Making a huge difference.
Makes a difference.
So yes, conversations are beautiful. Conversations are wonderful. We should all be having these conversations. They're going to be uncomfortable, but it's fine. We should be having these uncomfortable conversations because it's not an attack on anyone's personal character.
Right.
It's not an attack on anyone's
values or
beliefs.
cultures.
No, it's literally a conversation to understand. And I'm not going to be political, but I feel like in this climate, we cannot even have a conversation because people do not want to hear each other.
Yeah.
People believe what they believe, and that's it, and they're right and you're wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong, and that's it. And like the only way this country is going to come together is if we talk to each other and communicate and understand. And then listen. Yeah. And you have to have respect and mutual respect, because you can disagree with somebody, but if you're like, I disagree with you and you're an idiot, that's not going to go well. Yeah. So what do you say? You have two eyes and what?
Yeah. You got two sets of ears and one mouth. So you should listen twice as much as you speak.
Come on. We didn't get to half the stuff I wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll do another one of these at some point.
Okay.
So I hope this conversation was helpful to everybody. I hope you listened. I hope you heard. I hope you maybe do something. I always hope to inspire my audiences, and I hope to do that always through music. And right now it doesn't seem like the right time for me to be coming on here and singing a stupid song that I wrote.
They're not stupid,
but a lighter song I wrote about, I'm sitting in this room and logging into Zoom. Great. I think maybe having this conversation is more important, especially with what's going on in the world. And I hope that you heard this with, open ears and an open heart, and you do whatever you feel is right in these times, because times are changing and they're long overdue.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful to you for doing this. I know you're so scared.
I know, I'm like sweating, you can't tell. But
no, I can tell. But I appreciate you, and I thank you for doing this.
Of course.
It means a lot. You have opened my eyes so much. It made me want to be such a better person and a better human and a better partner. And I appreciate you. That being said, art heals. And with music being my healing language, I wanted to conclude tonight's show with a song that I wrote. This piece is called Be the Song, and it celebrates diversity, unity, and action. And I wanted to share.
In the face of tragedy, our cries seem all in vain. But I hear a melody, so join in my refrain. And we will sing, build the chords and hum along. Rearrange, make a change, be the song. Be the song, be the song, be the song. And for those who oppose all along, sing a little loud.
All right, sorry. If anyone's still here and still watching, we're gonna redo that. The way the back end of all this works is we have to load the video, and because we sat on it for so long, the video is buffering, and it's skipping the whole time. So we're gonna do that one more time, and we're gonna see what happens now.
Our cries seem all in vain. But I hear a melody, so join in my refrain. And we will sing, build the chords and hum along. Rearrange, make a change, be the song. Be the song, be the song, be the song. And for those who oppose all along, sing a little loud for the ones who got it wrong. In the name of every child who's lost their sacred choice, silence speaks so loud and wild, so let us be their voice. And we will sing, hold the place where they belong, harmonize as their cries, be the song, be the song, be the song, be the song, be the song. And for those who oppose all along, sing a little louder for the ones who got it wrong. In these desperate times of silence, when it seems we can't unite, be the voice of tomorrow. Step and fight, do what's right, and do what's right. We will magnify the moment, like the sun from up above. We will shine from sea to shining sea, to amplify our love. We will stand up to the violence, holding hands upon the shore, for the ones who come tomorrow, and the ones who came before, and for those who oppose all of. Sing it louder, 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 for the ones who can't go. The song, the song, the song, be the song, and for those who oppose all alone, sing a little louder, sing a little louder, we sing a little louder, all the ones who gone and wrong. Rearrange and make a change, be the song.